Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dante Fortson here with a new addition to the channel. Go ask your pastor. This is going to be episode number 1. Judaism may be native to West Africa. But before we get into that, this first episode is brought to you by good old-fashioned Christian hypocrisy. That's when you build your entire ministry telling black people that their ethnicity doesn't matter, and then you go onto a black YouTube channel and then name the ethnicity of every white person in the photo, and then when it comes to the black guy, you use a color and then the country where his kidnapped ancestors were taken. So either the ethnicity doesn't matter or it does. And why didn't you describe your white friends as white Jewish and or yourself as white Sicilian, or the other guy as white Assyrian? But your black friend over here, Irvin Williams, you describe him by his color. And you guys keep saying it's not about color. But anyway, if you guys want some good old fashioned Christian hypocrisy, hop on over to Vocab Malone's YouTube channel. You will find plenty of it over there. All right. So what is Go Ask Your Pastor all about? So in my book, The Black Hebrew Awakening, at the end of every chapter, I had questions for you to go ask your pastor. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to put individual pieces of evidence into their own shorter videos like this. Since the addressing the evidence, the videos are so long, a lot of people are not going to sit there for an hour or two to look at all the evidence, but these are shorter and meant to be shared. So please do me a favor, click the thumbs up button and make sure you share these. I want you guys to go ask your pastor. I want you guys to go on the Urban Apologetics channels. I want you to ask them. I want you to ask anybody that says that black people are not Israelites. I want you to go ask these questions and ask them why they are not teaching these things. So let's start off with the first one. Cambridge University Press. This right here says published in 1985, which I was using. So I want to update that. It was published in 1987. This book I'm going to refer to today, 1987, not 1985. I do want to update that and correct that. So Cambridge University Press. Here's a little bit of background for everyone that is not familiar with Cambridge University Press. Cambridge University Press, you can reach them at cambridge.org, is the publishing division of the University of Cambridge, one of the world's leading research institutions and winner of 81 Nobel Prizes. Cambridge University Press is committed by its charter to disseminate knowledge as widely as possible across the globe. It publishes over 2,500 books a year for distribution in more than 200 countries. Cambridge Journals publishes over 250 peer-reviewed academic journals across a wide range of subject areas in print and online. Many of these journals are the leading academic publications in their field, and together they form one of the most valuable and comprehensive bodies of research available today. For more information, visit journals.cambridge.org. So as you see, it's a very credentialed university that specializes in historical research. This is important because there are people out there who call themselves Christians who will tell the bold-faced lie that there is no evidence that black people are Israelites. And yet we find a very credentialed university, and they won't call them liars. So here's what you're going to have to ask your pastor about. This was written by Ulysses Santa Maria. Black Jews, the religious challenge, and politics versus religion. Now, there are some very interesting things that he wrote, and we're going to read some of those excerpts. And then I want you to watch this video again. I want you to share this video, and then I want you to go ask your pastor. I want you to ask these online pastors that deny it. Ask them why they aren't talking about this or teaching this. So amongst the many religious groups to be found in the United States, one is remarkable and very little known, the Black Hebrews. This group shares structural characteristics common to many minorities, but is also distinguished by a dual identity derived from the experience of slavery and the cultural mix specific to the New World. They are the product of two eventful histories. There is the history of their race, the main events which are well known. As black people brought from Africa, they were reduced to slavery, then freed. Their destiny is linked to that of the United States, where they form a second racial community. The other history is cultural, that of the Jewish tradition brought by the immigrants from Europe. The spread of this tradition amongst the black community is more difficult to grasp. He doesn't understand it. We will attempt both to improve our understanding of the interaction of this dual identity with the nature of Black American Judaism, and to pay particular attention to the study of the cultural influence of the Judaism of the Mediterranean basin on the peoples of Black Africa, like the Ashantis, who were historically in contact with Jews trading in these areas. These areas of Africa supply vast numbers of blacks forcibly deported as slaves to the American continent. Who then are these Black Hebrews whose existence was only brought to our attention between 1960 and 1965? Notice he didn't say that's when it started. That's when it was brought to his attention. They come from the Black American world and are mainly to be found in the ghettos, where they claim to be the true believers in the law of Moses and the descendants of those who concluded the alliance with Yahweh, that is, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Scattered throughout the big cities of the East and the center, like New York and Chicago, there are in the United States as a whole several thousand blacks who believe in Judaism. So we're going to stop there for that one. We're going to pick up now. The link to this is in the description, so you can go through and you can get a copy and read the entire thing for yourself. Again, this is published by Cambridge University Press, a credentialed university. We get to that was page 217. You get to page 220, and it reads, in the first months of 1879, there was a massive migration of some 5,000 blacks to the northern territories of the United States, mainly Kansas and Oklahoma. This exodus was of despairing blacks seeking a refuge, a place where their political rights would mean something, where they would be free from economic exploitation, and above all from the dangerous activities of the Ku Klux Klan. One of the members of this exodus was Benjamin Pap Singleton, an elderly and colorful man who led a group of 300 blacks to Cherokee County, Kansas. There they founded a colony, Singleton's Colony, Singleton calling himself the Moses of the Exodus of colored people. From 1900 onward, North and South Carolina were overrun by black preachers who were propagating a doctrine according to which the lost tribes of the house of Israel was none other than the Negroes. And remember, this is from 1900. Although this might at first sight seem an odd claim, it can be seen as reflecting the beliefs that some black slaves had held during their captivity when they were interrogated on their origins, their destiny. So he's saying this is corroborated. Remember, this is a university, a major credential university publishing this. A historical example supports this hypothesis. A slave uprising took place in Richmond, Virginia at the beginning of the 19th century. So now this is the beginning of the 19th century is the 1800s. If you don't know how that works, do some Googling, but the beginning of the 19th century is the early 1800s. So we keep getting further dates further and further back. And this, again, credentialed university, because some of these guys like all these credentials. So if Nobel Prizes and peer reviewed work isn't enough, no evidence is going to be enough. A slave uprising took place in Richmond, Virginia at the beginning of the 19th century, which was led by a slave called Gabriel Prosser, an outstanding personality who had acquired some knowledge of the Bible. Just some knowledge of the Bible. He frequently referred to it in order to convince his brothers that they were the descendants of the Israelites and that God would free them from slavery as he had their ancestors. He identified himself with Samson, his favorite biblical character. Like Samson, he wore his hair long, a sign given from God of the alliance made with his, and it cuts off there and goes on. So again, you can download this and read it yourself if you click the link in the description. So if we go to page 231, same book, it reads, it is well known that 1500 years before Islam, Judaism was present in Africa. Travelers' tales and the stories of journeys across North Africa, the Sahara, and the Sudan provide considerable evidence of the existence of Jewish communities on the African continent. We know from the time that We know that from the time of St. Jerome, 340 to 420, that's AD, a chain of Jewish commercial towns stretched almost uninterrupted from Mauritania to India. St. Augustine learnt Hebrew in Tanzim, where there it was a Judeo-Syrian colony which came from Cyrenaica. These groups went as far as Akkar in the southern Sahara, and according to the Chronicles of the Sudan and the dynasty of kings of Ghana. According to the Chronicles of the Sudan, the dynasty of the kings of Ghana originated in this group. Jewish contacts and influences with Black Africa were also noted by the Arab geographers Ibn Khordadbeh and El-Bikri, who stated that the roots of the trans-Saharan trade, which Jewish caravans and interpreters were involved, culminated in Ghana and Nigeria. Nigeria cuts off there. Now, again, they're saying that Judaism is present all over Sahara Africa, right? The Saharan. And you will run into a lot of these so-called Christian apologists who claim we are sub-Saharan African. And even those that aren't apologists will say, mostly the European ones will say, you're just sub-Saharan African. And yet we see here a major university publishes and says Judaism was present across sub-Saharan Africa or Saharan Africa, all over Africa. And we'll keep reading. Page 235, same book. In southern Nigeria, the natives called Black Jews the strange people on the Imo Yo Kaim. They were called the Beni Ephraim, the sons of Ephraim. They claim that their ancestors came from Morocco, and this is supported by Godby, who noted that their language is a mixture of Maghrebian Arab, ancient Hebrew, and local patois. For example, Abu, meaning father, became Yaba. For mother is close to the Hebrew word. These Imo Yo Kwaim Jews live in the Ondo district and have a copy of the Torah. The study of customs and rites and the analysis of the semantics of these African tribes have led many of their observers to purpose some hypothesis and even to draw some conclusions. Dr. Alan H. Godby reached the following conclusion. These factors have a very specific significance if we consider the presence of Judaism among the American Negroes. Hundreds of thousands of slaves were transported to America from West Africa during the trade, which started some 400 years ago. What traces of Judaism still remained among the Negroes of West Africa at that period? To the extent that they were persecuted, they were more likely than other Negroes to be seized during the wars and sold as slaves. And I mentioned that in my book, The Black Hebrew Awakening, that Israelites were targeted for slavery. And these same people who call themselves Christians apologists will not tell you the truth. They just simply will refuse to tell you the truth. And here we see a major university who has won awards for disseminating knowledge. That's their goal, is to disseminate knowledge. They are saying right here that Black people, Negroes that practice Judaism, were more likely to be seized and sold as slaves in America. And yet they say we are making these claims with no evidence. It is virtually certain that many part Jewish Negroes were among those sent as slaves to America. What did they say? What did the university say? It is virtually certain that many part Jewish Negroes were among those sent as slaves to America. Now, remember, this university is operating under the oppression that the white Jews are legit and the original Jews. So in their mind, these Negroes were mixed. And in another episode, I'm going to talk about how Black Jews ended up in West Africa in the first place. Again, we can trace all of this through history. So continue from page 235. How many of them would have been able to conserve some Jewish customs is another question. This conclusion put forward by Godby, which argues for the existence of a more or less recurrent Judaism in West Africa in the same places as those from which the Negroes were taken, is shared by others such as Maurice Delafosse. But most significantly, or more importantly, the most important thing, it has been adopted by a class of educated Black Americans as the key argument to demonstrate that the Jewish religion is the traditional religion of Africans brought in slavery to the American continent. That's from a university. So you need to go ask your pastor why they are not teaching you this stuff that came directly from a university. Because, among the black community, a lot of the older people are always telling you, go to school, get your education. And so a lot of the older black pastors need to be teaching you stuff from these universities if they're telling you to go get your education. So do me a favor, hit up your pastor, ask them this question, share this with them, hit up the urban apologetics community. In the groups on Facebook, on their YouTube channels, ask them why they are not teaching this truth and why they won't address this piece of evidence, because it's been out there and I've put it out there multiple times and they ignore it because they want to attack people because they can't attack the evidence, because attacking a university makes them look crazy. It has too many credentials. It's too big. And they are saying that it is certain that black people brought Judaism from West Africa. They are certain that Judaism may be native to West Africa. They are certain that Judaism was in sub-Saharan Africa and all over other parts of Africa, 1,500 years before Islam. So again, this isn't something new. It's not something we made up, but you guys need to go ask your pastor. Use hashtag go ask your pastor when you leave these comments. So until next time, see you guys later. I'm out.